Huntsman, The Winter's War is a sequel or prequel,
Yeah, bit of both.
to the 2012 film Snow White and the Huntsman, and it stars Chris Hemsworth, Charlize Theron, Jessica Chastain.
And Emily Blunt, who plays Elsa the Ice Queen.
I think you mean Freya, the Ice Queen.
How many Ice Queens are there?
Zach, just let it go.
This is great banter. It really is.
So this is a sequel that nobody asked for to the adaptation of Snow White that nobody asked for. And it's being advertised as the story before Snow White. And that is the case for about 25 minutes, and then everything after that is just the events following Snow White and the Huntsman. Zach, what did you think of this movie?
Personally, it was okay. It wasn't the best Disney live-action film, but it did the job. Pretty much, I would suggest seeing Snow White and the Huntsman before the Huntsman Winter's War, just because, you know, pretty much the Snow White story slots right in the middle of the Huntsman movie. So I personally thought the character design was great, acting was quite solid, especially by the evil sisters. CGI wasn't bad. It was
about 85% good. I'd say 85% of the time it was perfectly fine.
Yeah,
and then there was a few scenes where it was a bit questionable.
Yeah. We also have a few members of the cast from Snow White and the Huntsman returning as comedic relief, which was quite good.
And they were fine most of the time.
Yeah. There's another Ice Queen in the Disney universe, Disney story timeline. Yeah. So, what did you think, mate?
Well, I think you're being a bit too charitable, because ultimately it's every generic fantasy movie of the last 15 years kind of molded into one. They're borrowing elements from every big franchise, and ultimately it's a movie that I don't think is equal to the sum of its parts, because you've got four actors, the four principal leads. Some of they're really great actors, and some of them, I think, like Jessica Chastain, Emily Blunt, some of the best working actresses in Hollywood right now. The whole movie, they're just completely bogged down by this terrible dialogue. All it is exposition. And Snow White and the Huntsman's the kind of movie that you watch on a plane and then you forget everything about it by the time you've landed.
Yeah.
And I think this movie is exactly like that. It's completely disposable, completely forgettable. Look, the principal leads, like I said, most of the time they're great. Jessica Chastain and Chris Hemsworth are attempting these Scottish accents.
Oh no, that was terrible.
Yeah, I guess Chris Hemsworth was channeling Mel Gibson a lot with his... Looks like he was doing a William Wallace impression from Braveheart. It wasn't working. It made half the dialogue unintelligible. I couldn't understand a word they were saying. And it completely draws you out of the movie when you can't even understand, let alone sympathise with any of the characters. You were more favourable on it. Did you ultimately just feel like there was something there that gets you excited about the possibility of a third Huntsman movie?
I hope there's not a third Huntsman movie.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that.
These actors can do so much better, ultimately.
I mean, pretty much the only reason they have Chris Hemsworth there is because Thor.
He could do better. His choices in the last few movies have been very questionable. Before this, he did In the Heart of the Sea, and he did Black Hat. He seems to be really stuck in doing these crappy genre movies, and I hope he can do better, because he is a charismatic guy, and he just doesn't work in this movie.
He's a good bloke.
So the action for the most part was decent. It kind of suffers from the same problem most American movies do these days. It's too many cuts, too many fast edits, and while the action, I could tell the choreographing was quite good in some parts, it was kind of edited to shits. There's quite a few scenes that take place at night or in extremely dark places, and you can't follow anything they're doing, and it makes, when you've got dark hooded figures fighting other dark hooded figures in the pitch black at the middle of the night,
who's who.
You can't tell who's who, and it means that everything's meaningless. I do agree with what you said before, that I think the CG for the most part is good. It has interesting world building and some interesting fantasy elements. I feel like there's sometimes though that they're just kind of going a bit too over the top, where you just go, let's just insert random CGI monster here. And sometimes they're interesting, sometimes they just come across as...
Yeah, it was almost like they put, what's that technique called? It's like they used motion capture on monkeys. It was that.
Yeah.
It was that awkward.
There are some goblins in this movie that seemed a lot like rabid gorillas.
Yeah.
And it was a very strange scene. It's not the worst movie you're ever going to see, but with the cast that's there, and you've got some interesting world building going on here. It doesn't always work, but I think with the cast and the world you've set here, we could have got so much more. It's from the first-time director who acted as the visual effects supervisor from the first one, and I really did feel like it lacked a good touch from I think a good director could make something of this, but ultimately it's just a really bland movie. We've got thin characters, their motivations switch all the time, you never know. They're going for all these big twists that never land, and ultimately all the characters just bogged down with just crappy dialogue, and just they've got nothing to do most of the time. It's just people talking to each other, explaining their feelings, explaining their actions.
So if you're interested in seeing The Huntsman Winter's War, I would definitely suggest watching Snow White and the Huntsman. There were some scenes during the film, some parts of the story that you may not agree with or have a previous understanding of.
It relied a bit too much on your previous knowledge of the
Exactly.
film, or in my case, lack thereof.
Yeah, so like you'd have the scene where the Queen's there and you're just thinking, how the hell is she there because of Snow White? It can get all over the place. There were also some issues with editing. Pretty much I'm not as down on it as Ed is. It's more, I did enjoy the cinematography, CGI, and obviously the costuming. A lot of work went into that. I think that's what it's getting a lot of praise from at the moment, not so much the storytelling. But if you did enjoy the first one, which I honestly can't remember, I would probably go see this one. It is, to my knowledge, to how I remember it, better than the original Snow White and the Huntsman.
The things that seem to work about the first one seem to have translated here, but I think the same deficiencies of the first one are present here as well.
Yeah.
So
The idea of like a medieval battle, medieval time period, that does seem to really work with the whole live action Disney princess genre.
but there are better things to see in the movie. Go see 10 Cloverfield Lane, or
No, that's good.
you can skip Batman vs Superman.
Don't see Batman.
Thanks for watching, guys,
We're the Film Idiots. This has been our first video.
and we hope to see you guys next time. Peace!